I am convinced that Christianity is true. The first reason why I think Christianity is true is because I think God, as every monotheistic religion believes basically, as the creator of the universe, sustainer of the universe, the source of morality, is the best explanation for a wide range of facts of reality. Facts like that we have laws of logic, laws of arithmetic, we all apprehend beauty, we apprehend the moral law, or at least morality, objective moral truths. Objective moral truths mean truths that we think are true regardless of your personal preference. We all appeal to it, you might say, a moral law. So for example, if God is the best explanation for a wide range of facts about reality, there are facts of reality. For example, I consider it to be a fact. I have to assume some things for the sake of a quick YouTube video. I have to assume for a sec that I'm not solipsist. A solipsist is a person who believes that only they exist, everything else is imaginary. I find that unpersuasive. And if you're a scholar yourself, you can say, he didn't say this, and you're right, I didn't, because this is not the time for that. I'm not a solipsist. I think the best fundamental understanding of reality is there's existence. I exist, I think you exist, I think the phone exists that's recording this video, and so forth. Well, my question is, why does anything exist whatsoever? Why does anything exist whatsoever? There's no reason why something has to exist, but it does. So that's the question, why does anything exist? I think God's the best explanation for that. There's no reason to think the universe has to exist. And we know for a fact, number two, is it doesn't exist forever. And of course, that leads to the second point, that we all know for a fact that the universe began to exist. Whether it's a multiverse, whether it's just one universe, it really doesn't matter. It began to exist. The universe itself, the universe in which we live right now, is not eternal. It came to be. The question is, where did it come from? And the only alternative that I've read in all the books and all the scholars, all the atheists, all the non-atheist scientists and cosmologists I've read, they all concur that it started. Basically, it started. I'm convinced the universe did begin to exist. I'm convinced it began to exist probably 13.5 billion years ago. Fine. The question is, why did it begin to exist? If you believe the universe came from nowhere for no reason whatsoever, I find that very unpersuasive, and frankly, I find that silly. The idea that something can pop into existence from nowhere for no reason, it's just metaphysical nonsense. So if the only alternative, that's just what happened, I don't believe you. I'd rather people say aliens created it. I'd rather people say pink unicorns dancing on a rainbow created the universe. I'm more persuaded by that than I am the idea the universe popped into existence from nowhere. Make up any, it can't be nothing from nothing. That's gibberish. Laws of morality, everyone knows, outside of psychopaths and sociopaths, everyone knows a fact of reality is some things are right and some things are wrong. We might disagree on what is right and wrong, so what? Everyone knows that something is right and someone's wrong. We all assume it. Everybody on social media, everybody on the news, everyone's always telling us what you should do. People wear shirts, they have signs that say, be kind. They're telling me what to do. They assume being kind is a good thing. Who told them that? Who told them that? Well, I don't think atheists say that. I know Satan worshipers who go, yeah, it's good to be good. Good to be kind. Well, I agree with you. Where does this concept come from that it's good to be kind? Well, it's fobbed off on us on our evolutionary instincts. That's nonsense. The moral law is not an instinct. The moral law tells us what's instinct to use. I have an instinct when I go near a burning car to help the person or run away. They're two strong instincts. Which one should I choose? Something tells me which one to choose, and almost always, it's the one that causes the most danger to myself. It can't be for survival. C.S. Lewis answers all these kinds of questions perfectly in his radio address and made into a book called Mere Christianity. If you have not read it, stop this video and go read Mere Christianity right now. So there's a whole host of features of reality that for which I think God is the best explanation. And I think all other explanations that are given are simply, for me, profoundly unsatisfactory. The second reason I think Christianity is true is because I'm convinced this is two-parter. Christianity by far has the best historical evidence of any of the world's religions that I've explored. I used to teach world religions at a college, and I've explored them for a long time. But the other thing that matters the most is not so much that it has more than, but it has sufficient historical evidence to believe in it. And by historical evidence, I mean any normal historical evidence that a historian would use at a place of higher learning. They look for corroborating evidence. They look for any kind of evidence that corroborates a claim in an ancient text. Historical work, you might look for archaeological digs, numismatics, so coins. You look for other epigraphical or writing. You look for anything you can to corroborate something. Now, sufficient historical evidence, as I said, does not mean everything attested in the Protestant canon, the typical Bible that's for Protestants, those 66 books, can be corroborated. Everything in there cannot be corroborated. What I said was sufficient historical evidence to be corroborated. that makes me convinced Christianity is true. And you need things to be true and corroborated, like Jesus of Nazareth existed, that he was well known to be a preacher and teacher and exorciser of demons, and so forth, that he caused such a ruckus amongst his kinfolk, you might say of the Jews, that eventually he led the Romans to kill him. And there's enough historical evidence to suggest that the earliest followers of Jesus had to be persuaded that he was risen from the dead. When I talk about Christianity have the best historical evidence, I mean evidence that can be corroborated. This is where, again, because of time, I can't go through all the data for this right now, but this is my training, and part of my training as a historian. When you look at evidence, sometimes I like to do this. I'll just say, help a person when we start at real brass tacks simplicity. I say, for example, let's look at the Book of Mormon that claims that there were 2 lost tribes of Israel that showed up to North America, and they brought with them all kinds of elephants and chariots and all kinds of stuff, and there's this lost form of reformed hieroglyphics that they used. Well, it's bothersome to me as a historian that we have 0 corroborating evidence of these lost tribes of Israel. And any document anywhere in the world, not one shred of evidence. This reform hieroglyphics, there is 0 evidence. Elephants and chickens and so, these things do not come over. We've done archaeological digs for a couple of centuries. In North America, there's not a hint of these things before the Spaniards come, centuries after the Book of Mormon claims it happened. Now, the only thing you can do, which Mormons LDS does, which is just say, well, we haven't discovered them yet. I understand that. That's good. You're right. You're right. They haven't discovered them yet. That's problematic to me. But the second thing is you say, well, it's really the Mayans and Mesoamerican people. That's fine, but that's not what he said in the Book of Mormon. The point is nobody in the world, no archaeologist in the world finds that persuasive except for Mormon archaeologists. That's problematic for me. So in Christianity, it's very different. I can go to atheists, I can go to Satan, like every atheist's favorite person on the planet. You know who he is, right? You're thinking of his name right now? No? Think of his name. I almost said Ben Shapiro. Bart Ehrman.
I'm kidding at it.
You know he is, Bart Ehrman. Bart Ehrman, who was a Christian and left all that stuff and then became atheist. Rigorous believing Jews like Amy Jill Levine at Vanderbilt, Giza Ramesh at Oxford. You have, of course, Christians. The point is, well, of course you Christians think there's historical evidence. That's just nonsense. Your religion has nothing to do with it. Go to any historical society in the world worth anything, and you're going to find a wide range from atheists, pagan, non-Jew, Christians, whatever, and they all agree on a whole host of facts that all kinds of things are real, like Jerusalem really existed in the ancient world in the 1st century. Galilee really existed. We can go to the spot right now where Peter's mother-in-law that's mentioned in Mark, the house, there's a church built on top, an octagonal church from the 3rd or 4th century built on top of a house that everyone believes is Peter's house. The actual Simon Peter mentioned in the Gospels. We have the ossuary James, who was the brother of Jesus. The brother of Jesus. It says James, the brother, Jacob, the brother of Jesus on that. I know it's Jesus. Well, there's a lot of reasons. You can read the books. Ben Witherington did a great book on this, on the ossuary of James. But it's very rare for find. An ossuary is a bone box that has inscriptions. After they died, they put the bones in a box and put it in, like on a shelf. And they usually have inscriptions of the guy and his dad's name. It's very odd to put his sibling's name, brother of so-and-so. It's very weird. And it looks very authentic, and on and on. So we have tons of archaeological evidence that demonstrate, and this is very important, unlike the Book of Mormon, we have locations, cities that are corroborated. Another thing is you look at literature that came after the New Testament, what we call the Apocryphal Acts, and you compare the documents there of geographical locations. They're all over the place. They're completely wrong. It's very obvious that the people who wrote those documents had never visited Galilee or Jerusalem. I mean, they're a horrible wretched. The other thing that is corroborated is names. This has been around for several decades now. People like Richard Bauckham and others have noticed this for quite some time. You go into all the inscriptions, people have done research on all the inscriptions of all the epitaphs of all the tombs in Israel around the time of the 1st century, and you make a baby name list of the top 10 baby names. If you look at those baby names frequency and compare to the Gospels, they're almost identical. Now, you tell me what the top baby names are of your city, your state, or your village last year. How about 100 years ago and see how what about if you did it in Canada or in Asia? The point, there's no one can do that. It's ridiculous, but they're absolutely right on. There's numerous examples, and I do this in my study. I have a series called Why I Know Christianity is True, and I go through all these back to back to back. The point is there is overwhelming historical evidence that Jesus existed, that he was a wonder worker, that he exorcised demons. He was known as a wonder worker. He was known as a healer. He was known as an exorcist. Even his enemies didn't say this is all nonsense. What they said was he does it by the devil. So all that to say, there's historical evidence for that. And then you have to come to the conclusion that these earliest disciples of Jesus, who none of them believed, all of them were not just doubting Thomas, none of them believed whatsoever. And then afterwards, they come to believe he's raised from the dead. Now you have to ask the question, what caused the rise of their belief? And there's great books on all the alternative theories, like they were delusional, they were on and went. The point is, it doesn't make any sense. You make your own mind up. I have read all the alternate explanations, and none of them are persuasive of the evidence itself. They only compound the problems. Every supposed solution, you go, but then what about this? Well, Peter felt so guilty for denying Jesus. Well, then why did Saul Paul convert? Saul Paul never knew Jesus as far as ever. Why did he meet the resurrected Jesus? Why did he say that? He wouldn't feel guilty at all about anything. Why did he convert? Why did priests in Jerusalem, who originally had been part of the death of Jesus, why did they convert in Acts 15? You have to explain these as historical phenomena. And then that's what historians do. You say, what's the best explanation? Just like in a courtroom, here's the data, you decide for yourself. And for me, there's by far the best and the most sufficient evidence is in Christianity of any world religion. The third reason why Christianity is true, the why I know it's true, is because of religious experience. I save this one last because for most skeptics, I understand like myself, if you start with this and you say, well, you could be delusional. That's true. I could be delusional. That's exactly right. And as far as I know, and I've done some studies on this, I suffer from no serious psychological psychosis or neurosis or disorder of any type. So to demonstrate that belief that religious experience is false, you'd have to need a defeater for it. You have to demonstrate that I have some psychological disorder. Two, you'd have to demonstrate that the millions of people, Christians, who said they've had religious experiences also suffer from a disorder. I don't find the arguments for disorders persuasive. I've read them. I don't find them persuasive whatsoever. In my own life, I know that I have had religious experiences that are not like a cathartic experience of therapy. They're not like being moved by a movie or a great song or a great friendship or a great date night with my wife. They're different. They are encounters of meeting someone else who tells me something in my mind. And it's short and sweet. I don't hear messes. Schizophrenics particularly hear audible voices. That's a very common treatment of schizophrenia, different kind of psychosis. That's not what most Christians say they suffer from. They offer experience. I don't experience. I've never experienced God audibly. It's inside me. And every once in a while. But all that to say, not just thoughts, but impressions. You ask any person who has been filled with the Spirit of God, they will tell you something came over me, something happened to me. I didn't have an emotional experience. Something happened to me. And in my line of work as a lead pastor, I've experienced that for over 2 decades, almost 30 years now. I've encountered many people I have known who have gone from a way BC, before Christ, to AD. They have gone a massive change. I've seen the changes in their life. I've seen alcoholics stop cold turkey. I've seen drug addicts stop. I've seen people who were addicted to sexual things stop. I have seen people, I can get on the list. I've known a guy who was a gangster who stopped cold turkey. He got arrested because he had guns and was dating a stripper. And he gave all that life up when Jesus met him. I could go on and on and on with the stories that tell me Christianity is true. And it corroborates the first two things. I don't think religious experience in and of itself would be enough, because you could have defeaters. You could say, I had a religious experience of Jesus, but there's no evidence a guy named Jesus ever existed. That'd be a defeater. You say, well, you suffer something's weird there, maybe an alien or something. But when you have evidence that God is the best explanation for things, then solid historical evidence of a figure named Jesus of Nazareth, and then an experience that non-Christians have of a figure called Jesus, well, that's enough for me. You don't have experiences of Muhammad coming up to people. You have Jesus meeting Muslims in dreams. I've met them. It changed their lives. Jesus shows up in tribal villages before a missionary shows up. Jesus does. So those are examples over and over and over again of religious experience. So those are the top 3 reasons why I find Christianity to be the most persuasive religion in which to put your trust and faith. If you want more evidence, and I hope you do, I hope you'll have an open mind to this, check out the link in my description to a study I did on why I know Christianity is true. I did this not too long ago, but even since the time I recorded that, I've gotten more evidence I would add to it the next time around. But I think you'll find it helpful. At least you'll hear what I find most persuasive. I also have a book called A Skeptic Challenges a Christian. You can find, oh look, I feel a presence. Here it is. So that's on Amazon. I've got it on Kindle version. I've got paperback. I have an audio version where I actually read it to you in my sonorous voice. And it's so incredible. It'll lull you to sleep. I also hope for you that you will. In fact, if you're not a Christian, if you're watching this, please be open to the idea that you might learn something. YouTube's not the place to go for that. Dave, that's ironic you're on YouTube. I get it. But I'm saying is, if the person has not gone to school for this, if they're not trained specialists, please look for the specialist. And in my study, I give you tons of examples of people you can go read on your own and not just take my word for it. And that's fine. You don't have to take my word for it. But I hope you'll check out the description. God bless you. See you next time.